Hi, Rob Pajot from the National Trust here at the workshops of Heritage Grade in Ottawa, our subcontractor who is responsible for the restoration and conservation of the wooden elements of the project. And that is the subject of this episode of our vlog series on the restoration of the Papineau Chapel. So we'll come inside and see the work in progress. The project will include the conservation of several wood elements, including the access hatch doors into the crypt, the chapel's main doors, their frames, and its windows. But let's start right at the top with the chapel's wooden cross. The cross is about 7 feet high and is made up of 2 cedar logs, matching the rustic character of the chapel. It will be replaced as part of this project due to deterioration at its base and an unfortunate past repair that is deteriorating that saw a piece of angle iron screwed to the back of the cross. To replicate the cross, the Heritage Grade carpenters are using draw knives to remove the bark and smooth these dried cedared logs. The next step will be to join these 2 cross pieces. That joint will be a complicated half-lap and mitered joint that is designed to properly shed water while being structurally sound and stable. Now a quick jump back to the chapel in Montebello to talk about the windows. With the scaffolding in place, we now have access to our stained glass windows up close. And unfortunately, we find that they are in significantly worse condition than we had assumed. Here at the rear stained glass window above the altar, the stained glass has been modified in the past to remove some of the glass itself to allow for ventilation, and is in fact not attached to anything. It's being held in place just by the wire mesh on either side of it. The majority of the glass is also broken and has been repaired in some cases just with caulking. The round stained glass window at the front of the chapel is in similarly poor condition. Unfortunately, due to financial constraints, the restoration of the windows will have to wait for a second phase of the project, and in the meantime will be stabilized in situ. The storm window for this round opening will be conserved as part of this project. As you can see, it's been removed and is in the workshops at Heritage Grade, has been stripped and will undergo minor repairs before being repainted and reinstated. One of the most visible components of the chapel to be restored will be its front doors. These tall, massive wooden doors are generally in fairly good condition. However, their finish has worn down to next to nothing in several places, and over the years, several hardware changes have left their damage. The doors have been removed and brought to Ottawa to Heritage Grade's woodworking shops, where I asked Jeremy Bridge about what he's found now that he's looked at them much more closely.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty striking doors to begin with. Like, they're unusual, seeing all the faux iron hardware on the front, which, we had to kind of determine what type of wood that was. And as the various finishes came off, the first being, the current finish, which is a fairly deteriorated shellac finish that had been exposed to the elements for a fairly long time. As that came off and we started removing the ornamental pieces, we actually found faux wood graining underneath, which does actually explain the inconsistencies in the species of wood that we were seeing on the surface of the door.
Yeah, so the wood, the doors aren't all the same wood. We thought they were oak.
Some of the panels have this sort of flat sawn look of hardwood, and I wouldn't rule that out for those. We can't see the end grain because they're smack dab in the middle of the door, so It makes it harder to determine an exact species for that. The outer are likely a nice, really tight grained old growth white pine.
Yeah.
Jeremy and his team will now begin executing the necessary repairs to the wood doors themselves. Following that, they will receive their final finish coats both inside and out. The wooden hatch doors that provide access to the chapel's crypt will also be conserved as part of the project. Because of their location as part of the floor structure right at the entrance of the chapel, these hatch doors are showing signs of severe deterioration that we're here discussing today with Heritage Grade about the options for conservation.
They're fairly significantly deteriorated, at least on one of the doors, with either dry rot or carbon durance, and the surface is relatively well intact, despite the fact that the boards are starting to separate a little bit, and it's been braced temporarily on the underside. But all in all, the material itself is fairly stable. So if we have the opportunity to just leave the surface, it'll be an easier match for the surrounding materials rather than having to conduct a full restoration on the surrounding floor. We can Dutchman in material underneath, stabilize, and create something that matches what was there, but is literally leaving the intact patina on the surface, rather than us having to make conjecture about how that should look or would have looked, while also trying to make it blend in with the surrounding floor.
So we'll have to be making a decision very soon on which repair technique to use on the crypt's hatch doors. So that gives a sense of the wooden elements that we're working on as part of this project. There are a few additional elements, wooden elements of the chapel that are being conserved. But because they're related to the roof structure, I thought we would talk about them next time, because our next vlog episode will be talking about the replacement of the chapel's copper roof. So thank you for tuning in to this episode, and stay tuned for the next episode, which will have the nice, bright, shiny copper roof discussion. So cheers and thanks again.